welcome to this edition of Just Parlays. I'm Jim Williams. With me, my partner in crime, Mr. Chris King. And today, Christopher, we get underway with a little bit of news, which shouldn't have surprised anybody because Stevie Wonder could have seen this thing coming.
I heard Ray Charles did too.
Yeah, he did. The late Ray Charles, even from heaven, could tell. And that is that baseball has its first lockout in nearly 3 decades. You have to go all the way back to 1995, which we all remember was the season that 2 things happened. 1, there was no World Series, and 2, it was the season that basically sealed the fate of the Montreal Expos, because from that point forward, they had a new stadium on the books, and unfortunately, because of that lockout, it was decided that they no longer wanted to do the stadium. So
that was also the year that Tony Gwynn got robbed of a chance to hit for 300 because he hit, or 400. I'm sorry, he hit 394 that year before the strike happened.
Yeah, and then there's the other thing, which was of interest in that year too. Interestingly enough, the decision, which in March, broke the thing open and sent everybody back, was decided in the Southern District of New York Court by then Judge Sonia Sotomayor, before she was a Supreme Court justice. So the last thing she did was start baseball back up. So there you go. So we'll keep an eye out. There was $1.5 billion worth of contracts put out just before baseball decided to have a work stoppage, which is...
Yeah, I know the Cubs had to finalize a deal with Marcus Stroman. They were trying to get it done just before the deadline, 3 years, $71 million.
Yeah, I gotta say, I think that's a good deal. I was thinking that Stroman was going to get, a longer deal, in excess of $100 million. So, 71 for 3, I think that's not a bad deal for Marcus Stroman.
Yeah, plus he's got an opt-out clause after year 2.
Of course.
It shows that Jed Hoyer is committed to trying to turn that franchise around after basically selling off all the pieces from the 2016 World Series team last season.
Yeah, that's well, you got to at least try to prove that you're interested in some stuff.
I blame Tom Ricketts for that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people to blame. There's not. That's one of the great things. There's no loss of people, but we can blame for that. Well, everybody's here to watch Mr. King get into his good stuff, and that's parlays. And we're going to start on the college hardwood. And there's going to be some schools, and I'll give you a little hint, folks, before we get to the actual graphic. You're going to see some schools here you probably have never heard of before. Maybe you have.
That's what makes it entertaining.
That's what, absolutely. Because those are the schools that, you really have to dig in deep. And this is why I'm here with Mr. King, because Mr. King, he understands you don't have to be a big program to be a profitable one. So
that's true. You don't have to be Duke to be profitable. We saw that the other day. Duke proved it.
That's
you can't
for
rely
sure.
on them.
You can't rely on the Devils. All right, here we go. The Devils in the details, and here's the details on game 1.
Right, we're going to take you to the Horizon League, and it's in the Windy City as the Oakland Golden Grizzlies, who call Rochester, Minnesota home, so you figure out why they're called Oakland, take on the Illinois Chicago Flames. Now, Oakland's 5-2 this year. UIC just 2-4 coming into this one, and their only Division I win was an overtime win on the road against Valparaiso. Now, Oakland has already beaten Oklahoma State in Stillwater this season down at the Gallagher-Iba Arena.
Wow.
And they also hung close against West Virginia and Morgantown, losing by 7 to a Bob Huggins team. UIC is 275th in effective field goal percentage defense. They're 283rd defending the 3. Oakland 89th in effective field goal percentage defense. They shut teams down from the perimeter. They're 34th in the nation, holding teams to 27.2% from out there. Oakland 5-0 in their last 5 as a favorite, 6-1 in their last 7 overall. UIC is 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 after an ATS loss. They're 1-5 against teams with a winning percentage better than 600, and they're 1-6 in their last 7 against teams with a winning straight-up record. This game may take place in Chicago, but that doesn't help the Flames. They get doused by the Golden Grizzlies.
You know, the Horizon League is a fun league to watch. There's a lot of street ballers in that game. You know, a lot of guys who come from the inner cities who play out there, and they really have some fun. Some fun basketball to watch in the Horizon League. So it's entertaining, to be sure.
You've had some good teams out there. You've had Wright State has been very good the last few years. Right. You added Robert Morris this year, Milwaukee, Green Bay. There's a lot of teams that you don't necessarily hear about,
right?
But that are very capable teams that can spring upsets come March time.
Even Cleveland State, which has had some decent teams.
Right, the Vikings. I mean, everybody remembers them from back in '86 when they knocked Bobby Knight out of the tournament in the first round,
right.
And Bob Knight did not want to have a press conference.
Yeah, it was not pretty. He was not pleased for that time. They lost in the NCAA tournament, I think, to David Robinson and the Navy.
Right, because Navy had that big run that year. I mean, to the Elite Eight, I believe it was.
Yeah, that was the year that John Thompson said that, because they're in the Navy, you can't be above 6'7". That's the height thing. And he said he didn't know how Navy measured, but there was no way that David Robinson was.
They measured from his knees up.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that's probably the way it goes. So we leave the Horizon League and we head to.
Well, we're going to head to out west, where it's a non-conference matchup with the UC San Diego Tritons hosting Eastern Michigan. UC San Diego, they're 4-2 this year overall. They're 2-0 at home. On the road, they beat Cal, which you can take either way. You can either take it as, hey, UC San Diego beat a Pac-12 team, or you can look at it as, well, Cal sucks. I mean, it's pretty much, however you want to look at it. Meanwhile, Eastern Michigan's 2-4 overall. They're 0-4 on the road. Their 2 wins this season for Eastern Michigan came over schools from the state of Illinois. They beat Illinois State, and they beat Western Illinois.
Okay.
Your team impresses me, Eddie. UC San Diego, 87th in effective field goal percentage. They get to the free throw line at a ridiculous rate. They lead the nation by getting 4.492 free throw attempts per field goal attempt. When you're taking one free throw every 2 field goal attempts, you're doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Eastern Michigan, 271st in offensive efficiency, 268th in effective field goal percentage. They're terrible shooting from 2-point range. And 17.3% of their shots get blocked on the offensive end. That's the 4th highest rate in the nation. Meanwhile, UC San Diego is 23rd in effective field goal percentage defense. They're 5-0 in their last 5 at home. Eastern Michigan 1-10 against the spread in their last 11 road games against teams with a winning home record. Give the touchdown. Look for UC San Diego to take this by double digits. Eastern Michigan, they had to replace like 2/3 of their minutes and scoring from last season's team because everybody left after last season's disaster. It's not going to get a whole lot better right away. Yeah, it might get better as the season goes on. They get into MAC play and start facing, some of the teams from the conference there. But they're not going to be a contender. But the hope is they'll be able to gel as the season wears on. Unfortunately, it doesn't help them here. They'll drop to 0-5 on the road.
But if you're going to go from Ypsilanti, where there's like 1.5 inches of snow on the ground, out to San Diego, that's not a bad trip.
Hey, if they've only got 1.5 inches of snow at Ypsilanti, they can go out to Buffalo where my parents live, and they had almost a foot the other day. So suck it up, people from Michigan.
Right. But I'm just saying, if I'm going to travel from Ypsilanti, I could think of worse places to go than San Diego. So,
this is true.
There you go. All right.
Well, I'd like to say hi to everybody out there that's watching. Glad to have you on board.
Absolutely. And by the way, good point. Gang, here's what we need you to do. We need you to smash that like button and hit the subscribe button, because that way every day you're going to know that 1:30 you're going to be able to see us. Now, if you can't see us, all right, that's cool too. Still subscribe. You'll come back and you'll check us out later and make sure you got plenty of time to get your bets down and get your parlays in. So, as Chris said, welcome. We'll get to your questions in a few minutes. And by the way, as I said, smash that like button because that makes everybody happy. And also hit the subscribe button. So do both of those as a favor to us. We would greatly appreciate it. Okay? All right, cool. All right. Our last game on the hardwood, with the caveat being the last game on the hardwood in the college ranks,
Right.
we go to
We're going to go to Wyoming.
Wyoming.
We're going to go out there to Laramie this time, where the Wyoming Cowboys favored big over the Denver Pioneers, and you'll see why in a second. We told you Wyoming 6-0 under Jeff Linder. I told you to take them Monday night over CSU Fullerton on the road, and they won that one convincingly. They're facing a Denver team that's 3-5, and no, that's not a typo on the next line. Denver has a loss at home to Ottawa University of Arizona. Now, if you knew that there was an Ottawa University that wasn't in Canada, kudos to you. B, this is just one of multiple campuses of Ottawa University. There's one in Surprise, Arizona, where you see a lot of spring training. There's also one in Kansas. But the bottom line is they're an NAIA school that went on the road and beat a Division I team in their own building. There's not a whole lot else you need to say about Denver once you lose to a team like that. Meanwhile, Wyoming has beaten Washington, CSU Fullerton, and Grand Canyon on the road. That's Grand Canyon's only loss of the season. They're 6-1. Wyoming's won each of their 3 home games this year by at least 38 points. They're 10th in effective field goal percentage, shooting 58%. They're 4th from inside the arc. They're shooting 60.6% from 2-point range. And they're good on the defensive end of the floor, holding opposing teams to 38.1%. Meanwhile, Denver's 334th in offensive efficiency and 322nd on the defensive end. They're 3-9 in their last 12 on the road. Wyoming is 7-0 against the spread in their last 7 as a favorite. 4-0 in their last 4 on Thursday. 6-0 in their last 6 against teams with a losing record. I just can't get past the second line where Denver lost to Ottawa University of Arizona, and that's only everything I needed to know. Wyoming should win this one probably by at least 30.
It's funny. The good news, if you're a University of Denver fan, is it is hockey season. So you can go over and watch the hockey team play because I'm thinking that watching the basketball team is not going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's like I said, losing to Ottawa University of Arizona. I had to look it up to find out who they were because I thought it was a typo.
I'm sure they hoped it was a typo. Unfortunately, it's not. So, all right, we had 3 good and very interesting basketball games. It's time to hit the frozen pond. And does lightning strike twice?
Well, we sure as heck hope not, because we talked about this one the other night when these two teams met in St. Louis when it was Tampa Bay going to the Gateway City to face the Blues. Tampa Bay was up 3-0 in that game after one period and went on to lose 4-3 in a shootout, which was disappointing. When we look at it here, the Blues are 5-4-2 on the road. Tampa Bay 7-3-2 at home. The Blues tend to struggle after a win. They've lost 6 of their last 7 games following a victory. They're just 2-6 in their last 8 on one day of rest. They're 1-4 in their last 5 as an underdog, and they've dropped their last 4 road games. Meanwhile, Tampa Bay has won 5 of their last 6 in the second game of a home-and-home set. They're 37-15 in their last 52 at home. They're 62-24 in their last 86 on Thursdays. The Blues were fortunate on home ice Tuesday night. I don't see them having that same fortune working in their favor here. Andrei Vasilevsky should bounce back after a bit of a rough outing. I look for the Lightning to take down the Blues here.
Well, they are the 2-time back-to-back defending Stanley Cup champions for a reason, and they usually don't lose in Amalie Arena. So,
and the Blues seem to have an allergy to success because they can't sustain a win streak. Like I said, you lose 6 out of 7 after you win a game.
Yeah.
You're not, to quote Lou Brown, like we did yesterday. If we win today, that's 2 in a row. That's called a winning streak. The Blues don't know what that is.
They need to watch the film. All right, so.
And as David Hess says, Vasilevsky's 117-48 in his career at the Amalie Arena.
That's That's what we like to call. I'm not good at math, but I'm going to go with that's pretty darn good. So we're going to leave the Tampa Bay area, but not go too far. Heading up to
Yep, we're going to go to Sunrise,
the
where the
Sunrise.
Panthers are taking on the Sabres, and I like the Panthers -1.5 on the puck line against a Buffalo team that is reeling right now. The Sabres just 2-5-2 on the road. They're 3-10-2 in their last 15, washing away that promising start that had everybody in Western New York gloating about how the Sabres were near the top of the standings, kind of like they did in the last couple of years right before they fired Ralph Kruger. Buffalo is 30th in the league in goals against. They're allowing 3.5 goals a contest. Craig Anderson's still out with an upper body injury. He's been out for a month, so the Sabres have been trying to rely on Dustin Tokarski and Aaron Dell. In case you're wondering, neither one of those guys are number one goaltenders at any point in their career going into this season. They're kind of thrown in there just due to issues. Sabres 13-46 in their last 59 as a road underdog. They're 1-4 against Eastern Conference teams, and they have to face a Florida team that's 12-1 on home ice, averaging 4.31 goals per game. That includes that game the other night where if you turn the game off against Washington when Washington was up 4-1 after 2 periods, you missed an absolute brutal third period where the Panthers outshot the Capitals 27-2. That's not a typo. 27-2 en route to a 51-27 shot advantage. They scored the winning goal there with under 15 seconds to play and won 5-4. The Panthers are very good at home.
Yeah.
The Sabres are not very good, period.
Well, Panthers have their own Russian goalkeeper who's not too bad.
Right, Sergei Bobrovsky. Hopefully, I don't know if they've made the decision if it's going to be Bobrovsky or Spencer Knight tonight. If it's Knight, he really needs to bounce back after a couple of subpar performances in his last few outings.
And the Caps, of course, we had talked about it. I was really surprised that got to 5-4 because, the Panthers usually don't give up that many goals, and
right.
And the Caps, normally when they score 4, they win. So it was one of those strange things where I was watching the game. They were up by 3. I figured, okay, time to take a nap, and woke up the next morning only to find out that the Capitals didn't win. So there you go, boys and girls.
Right, and Washington is good in their own end, too. I mean, they're 4th in the league in goals against. So, I mean, to see a game, A, with 9 goals, and B, to see them give up 4 goals in a period was very disconcerting.
It was, if you're a Caps fan like myself, yes. But, it happens to the best of them. All right.
And Liam, we're glad to hear that from last night, the first half Rhode Island and Nova parlay panned out for you. I know Rhode Island was up big in the first half before Harvard tried to make a run before the Rams put it away. Villanova was up big in the first half. I guess they decided not to play basketball in the second half and let Penn hang around enough to cover that line, which was disappointing. But I'm glad that the first half numbers panned out for you.
Well, just in the standpoint of full disclosure, I have 3 family members who graduated from Penn, so they got a rare win. I mean, a rare almost win over Villanova last night. Here we go. We're going to the Caps. We talked about them a few minutes ago.
Yep,
and playing the Hawks.
Yep, tonight they play the Blackhawks at the Capital One Arena up there. Ted Leonsis probably won't be in the box, I wouldn't imagine. He's probably busy spending his money somewhere. Chicago's just 2-7-1 on the road this year. Washington's 7-1-3 on home ice. The Blackhawks average just 2 goals a game on the road this season, and they catch Washington at a bad time. Like we just said, the Capitals melted down in the third period. When you give up as many shots in a period as you have as a team in the entire game, that's not a good sign. Washington is 5th in the league in scoring at 3.57 goals per game. They score 3.73 goals per game on home ice. Chicago's just 2-8 in their last 10 against the East. They're 1-6 in their last 7 when their opponent gives up at least 5 goals in their last game. They're 1-6 against the Metropolitan Division. Meanwhile, you've got a Washington team that's won their last 4 at home. They're 4-1 in their last 5 as a home favorite. They're 5-1 in their last 6 against the Central Division. There's no reason to like the Blackhawks here. They're a team in disarray. They fired their coach. They've had a lot of injuries. They've had inconsistent goaltending. Marc-Andre Fleury not looking anything like he did when he was in Pittsburgh or in Vegas. And the Capitals are an angry team that are out to avenge what happened to them 48 hours ago.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. You mentioned Ted, whether he's going to be in the building or not. There was a time not long ago when Ted used to walk around the the arena with a big yellow pad, and he would walk and stop people and say, "Hey, glad to see you here. Why'd you come tonight?" And he would take down notes, and half the people didn't even know he was the owner. They just basically
He's
said,
just some
"Oh,
random guy walking around.
look at this guy's asking me. He's doing a survey." So Ted is one of those guys who enjoys being in the building with the people and having fun with it. And now his son is heavily involved, and they are very big in something that's coming down the road, which many of you already enjoy, and that is in the competitive game industry, which regards to the video games and that whole situation. And also, if you are a fan of wagering, which I'm sure some of you might be if you're watching us.
I'm sure at least 2 or 3 of you are.
Yeah, 2 or 3 of you. They now, in the city of Washington, betting is done at the arena or at Nationals Park. So if you happen to be at the Capital One Center, you can go next door, which is like a block, and bet on the game before you go in.
And Joan, don't feel bad. Villanova burned a lot of people. As Steen would tell you, they got a little too complacent and played with their food too long, which is why they didn't put Penn away. They were up big, and then they gave up. I want to say it was something like an 8 or 9-0 run early in the second half to bring it into a 7-point game, and Villanova just never put it away after that. I mean, They won by 15, but that doesn't help when you're a 17.5-point favorite.
No, it's close, but it's not enough. So where are we going next, boss?
We're going to take a look at down in the Lone Star State. We've got the Stars hosting the Blue Jackets, and in another one of those games where I like the puck line, I'm going to go with the Stars. They're 7-2-1 at home this season, while Columbus is just 4-5 on the road. The Blue Jackets give up 4.22 goals per game on the road this season. That's a pretty high number. Meanwhile, Dallas has won 5 in a row. They're 4-0 in their last 4 after a win. They're 4-0 after holding their last opponent to 2 goals or less. They're 6-0 at home. They're 6-0 as a favorite. Meanwhile, Columbus 19-40 in their last 59 as an underdog. They're 15-36 in their last 51 on the road. The Blue Jackets clearly missed Patrick Lane, who's out until sometime later this month with an injury. They're not a great offensive team, and if Elvis Merzlikins is not in goal and you have to rely on Jonas Korpisalo, it really hasn't panned out that well for the Blue Jackets. I like Merzlikins. Obviously, this team's still reeling from the offseason death of Matisse Kivelniks on the 4th of July with that tragic fireworks incident.
Right.
But Columbus, they're a good offensive team at home, but they have issues on the road.
It's funny. Columbus traditionally has been a pretty competitive team, and they're having all kinds of issues, as you just mentioned, this time around. But the Stars have always played pretty well at home.
And we told you last week on that 14 where we said pick them against Edmonton, which a lot of people were surprised about because, hey, the Oilers are a high-scoring offensive machine, and Dallas beat them 4-1.
Yeah, and that in their barn, they're good. So,
well, hold on, Jim. We got a question from Liam here.
Okay, go ahead.
Liam, yeah, I agree that it's probably a safe parlay there with the Hurricanes, the Capitals, and the Avalanche, and Florida on the money line. I'm impressed that you can get it at plus 300, considering that Carolina is about a minus 330 favorite over a dismal Ottawa team that got drubbed 6-2 by Vancouver. And Colorado, they're going to try to bounce back from an 8-3 thumping by Toronto last night, where the Leafs won for the 15th time in 17 games. The one thing that concerns me is Darcy Kemper was supposed to start in goal for the Avalanche last night. He was ruled out with an upper body injury, so they had to turn to Jonas Johansson. They dressed an emergency goaltender, then had their backup show up in the middle of the game. You have to be concerned, are they going to go back to Johansson or will they go to the young backup? I can't remember what his name is because he didn't play. Pavel Frank, who's down in the AHL for conditioning. So you just have to be a little concerned about the Avalanche goaltending situation for this one. But then again, it's the Canadians. They don't score much anyway.
So maybe you shouldn't be as concerned as you might think.
Yeah, so you might be safe.
There you go. Well, we're going to leave Frozen Pond now and go back to the hardwood only. This time it's the association. And let's begin out in...
We're going to start in the Rose City, where we were the other night when the Pistons were in town. This time it's the Spurs coming to Portland. And Portland, like we said, when they play at home, they're good. When they play on the road, they're bad. Well, this one's in Portland. They're 10-1 at home at the Moda Center. San Antonio's 2-7 on the road. Portland will be minus Damian Lillard tonight, who's out with an abdominal injury. He's supposed to miss 10 to 14 days. Hopefully when he comes back, he can get his shot right. I know he's really had struggles with it this season. C.J. McCollum, Jusuf Nurkic, and everybody have to step up. Norman Powell is questionable for this one. He's missed the last couple of games. For San Antonio, Doug McDermott's missed 4 in a row with an inflammation in his knee. Devin Vassal's missed 2 straight with a quad contusion. They're both questionable tonight. San Antonio has lost 5 of their last 6 on the road. Their lone win in that stretch came over Orlando. That's right, Orlando, who won their second home game of the season last night. Thanks a lot, Denver. Meanwhile, the Spurs are 1-5 in their last 6 after scoring 100 points in their last game. They beat Washington 116-99 at home the other night. They're 0-4 in their last 4 as a road underdog. They're 0-4 in their last 4 on the road, period. Portland 5-0-1 in their last 6 at home. They're 6-1-1 in their last 8 as a favorite. I don't have a ton of faith in the Spurs, especially minus a couple of key contributors potentially. They play at a fast tempo, but that doesn't really mesh with what you're used to seeing from the San Antonio. And it's tough to beat Portland in Portland, period.
Right. We were talking the other day about how this team is a very un-Popovich kind of a team, right? I mean,
right.
Normally Popovich is a very team-oriented, pass the ball around, hit the open guy kind of thing. They're not an up-and-down tempo team. And I think, I'm not certain why Pop would go away from something that's won him a new number of championships other than the concept, wrongfully thinking at this point that he's got a team that can play tempo, because they can't play tempo.
And you also have to look at this rotation. It's a lot of young guys. You don't have that veteran glue that they've had before. You don't have Tim Duncan. Sure. You don't have Manu Ginobili or Patty Mills or LaMarcus Aldridge or even Rudy Gay the last couple of years, or or anybody like that. So you're trying to rely on a lot of young guys. And while there's room to grow for that team, you don't have a guy that can settle them down.
Right. The veteran presence that can just chill them out and say, okay, guys, here's where we need to go. So, well, if anybody can fix it, Pop can, but I don't know. We'll have to. It's going to take a lot of push to get there. Okay, next up on the docket. Here we go, boss. We're going
to the Valley of the Sun, where the Motor City Bad Boys are on the road as they take on the streaking, blazing hot Suns, who have won 17 in a row after they beat Golden State the other night at home, which moved them into a first-place tie in the Pacific Division as both teams, with 18 wins. Meanwhile, while Phoenix is going one way, Detroit's going the other. They've lost 7 in a row. They're 2-9 on the road. Phoenix is 9-2 at home. Detroit is awful on the offensive end of the floor. They're last in scoring. They're last in field goal percentage. They're last in three-point shooting. And don't feel bad. They're not very good defensively either. Meanwhile,
at least they're consistent. Yeah.
Exactly. They're consistently bad. The Pistons are 3-10 in their last 13 against teams with a winning record. They're 2-6-1 in their last 9 against teams with a winning percentage above 600. Suns 5-0 in their last 5 at home against teams with a road winning percentage under 400. They're 6-1 in their last 7 against teams with a losing road record. I told you to take Portland over the Pistons minus 9.5 the other day, and they lost by 17 or 18 points. Now they're facing a team in the Suns that are ridiculously hot. I would look for this one to be at least a 15 to 20 point line. Take the Suns; they'll make it 18 in a row. I don't see this team overlooking anyone at this point because they know on any given night you can get beat. Just ask the Nuggets, ask the Heat, ask any of these teams lately that have put up dud performances against mediocre teams. The Clippers.
Yeah. I got to say, I was impressed with the game that they played against Golden State the other night.
It was a good game.
They really hung in there and played well. And those two teams, the Suns and Golden State, just they're on a in a class by themselves, and I'm not sure anybody's going to catch them anytime soon. So
yeah, that's true.
When you got that going, and look, it's a trip. The good news is we just talked about in the college ranks. We talked about Eastern Michigan going from Ypsilanti out to San Diego. Well, we got Detroit going out to the Valley of the Sun. So at least there's some warmth out there that they can get some solstice in. But
you got to take your wins where you can get it.
Yeah, exactly. Take it where you can get it. All right, let's head back to the hardwood, and this time
we're going to go north of the border to the Scotiabank Arena, where the Bucks, who have won 8 in a row to tie it, the Central Division lead with the Bulls, are going to face the Raptors. Now, I know what you're thinking. The Bucks are favored by 4, even though they're playing the second game of a back-to-back after edging Charlotte 127-125 yesterday in a shootout. However, if you look, the Raptors are just 2-8 at home this season, and they lost as a 3.5-point favorite against the Grizzlies the other night, 98-91. They're also going to be minus Goran Dragic and OG Anunoby, who's their leading scorer, and Gary Trent Jr. is questionable with a calf injury. Meanwhile, the Bucks have a ton of momentum. Even they just keep rolling along despite missing guys left and right for extended periods. Brook Lopez, J. Rue Holiday, Chris Middleton have all missed time this season. Dante DiVincenzo has yet to take the floor at all. But the Bucks keep winning games. Meanwhile, they're 4-0 in their last 4 against teams with a losing record. They're 6-1 in their last 7 as a favorite on the road. Toronto's 2-8 in their last 10 at home against teams with a road winning percentage better than 600. And in some ugly numbers, the Raptors are 0-8 against the spread in their last 8 on one-day rest, and they're 0-6 in their last 6 at home against teams with a winning road record. The Bucks may be a little tired after going to the wire with Charlotte last night, but I can't defend a team that's 2-8 at home. Take the Bucks.
Take the Bucks and leave the driving to the rest of the folks here. It's funny as we get ready to go to. It's hard to say with so many games left in the NFL season that this is a must-win game. But I got to believe, Chris, that the loser of the Saints game and the Dallas game tonight is going to be scrambling to make the playoffs.
Well, at least in Dallas's case, they have a little more cushion because of the fact that they play in the NFC least.
Right.
I mean, but they still have 2 games with a hot Washington team coming up down the stretch. Right. New Orleans, they could be in some serious trouble. I mean, they've already dropped down to, I want to say they're 10th or 11th in the NFC standings. And as far as the playoffs go, they lose tiebreakers with Washington, with San Francisco, with Atlanta, and with Minnesota. So it puts them in dire straits, and you don't get your money for nothing or your chicks for free in this case if you're down in the Big Easy.
Not in the least. And so let's go to the game and break it down. There you go.
Right, and I'm going to take Dallas minus 5.5 over New Orleans. Like we said, both teams are struggling right now. Dallas has lost 3 of 4 after falling in overtime to the Raiders on Thanksgiving because they forgot that you can't try to mug a receiver. This isn't the days of Lester Hayes.
Right.
Meanwhile, the Saints have lost 4 in a row to drop to 5-6. On the plus side for Dallas, they're supposed to get Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb back this week. Cooper was out with COVID. CeeDee Lamb had a concussion. They both missed last week's game. On the flip side, the Saints have ruled out Alvin Kamara for a 4th straight game with that knee injury. They do hope they get Mark Ingram back, so at least they'll have some reference of a running game. but they're minus both their starting tackles as Teron Armstead and Ryan Ramczyk are both out. Also missing Marcus Davenport, Tanon Compassion, and Caden Ellis, taking a real dent out of their defensive line depth. Offensively, the Saints are supposed to turn to Taysom Hill, making him about the 87th guy to try to start under center this year for the Saints. He doesn't have a ton of passing experience. He's more of the wildcat gadget guy. I know the Saints signed him to that weird hybrid contract where it could be worth anywhere between $40 and $95 million, depending on where he plays and everything else.
Right.
But you're facing a Dallas team that is number 1 in the league in total offense. They're 3rd in scoring offense. They're 6-0 against the spread in their last 6 against NFC teams. They're 5-1 against teams with a losing record. The Saints are 3-8 against teams with a winning record. They're 3-8 in their last home against teams with a winning road record, and they're 1-4 in their last 5 on field turf. If you look at it, we just watched New Orleans get stomped by Buffalo last week. Where they ran the ball 25 times for 44 yards. It's the lowest rushing yardage total on at least 25 carries dating back to at least 2003 in the league. And when you're averaging 1.8 yards a carry, you're not going to beat anybody because you're putting yourself in 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12 situations, and it's tough to move the sticks like that.
Well, the other thing too, and you talked about it, is that the Saints are also going to be down a couple linemen.
Right. I mean, you're going to have Jordan Mills in there playing one tackle, and he's been so good that, he's multiple teams have let him go. You don't have any big play threats in the passing game. I mean, if you look, Michael Thomas hasn't played. He won't play all year. You're relying on guys like Deontay Harris and Lil Jordan Humphrey and Marquez Callaway, and kudos if you have any of those guys, if you drafted them in fantasy at the start of the year because nobody else did.
Right. The other thing is, you touched on it, and it's really the most critical point is if I'm Dallas, I'm going to say, okay, Mr. Hill, go ahead, throw it.
Right. A, who are you going to throw to? And B,
right.
Can he throw it accurately?
Right.
I mean, this season he's thrown a handful of passes because normally when he's in there, he runs the ball.
Right. I mean, that's the reason he's in. He's, as you said, he's a gadget quarterback. And that's the last thing you want to be doing is try and trick plays against Dallas's defense, although Dallas has been known to give up some crazy stuff. So
true, but they are getting healthier. DeMarcus Lawrence is supposed to be back, and Randy Gregory's on the comeback trail. He's supposed to play next week.
Well, they got some people that Dak Prescott can throw to. And the Saints aren't exactly world beaters when it comes on that back end.
Right, they've had a lot of issues in their secondary. Outside of Marshawn Lattimore, there's not a whole lot that you can rely on back there for the Saints defensively. They've got a good front seven, I'll give them that. But unless they can get after Prescott and knock him around, which seems questionable at best given the fact that they're missing 3 defensive linemen.
Yeah.
I mean, if you double team Cam Jordan, who else is going to get home?
That's another good point. All right. Time for 2 for the money, my friend. You ready?
Let's go for it. We just talked about it. The top one I'm going with is I'm taking the Cowboys minus 5.5 on the road against the Saints. I just don't trust them. Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator, will be coaching tonight with, as you know, Mike McCarthy, along with a whole bunch of other coaches out in the health and safety protocols. Quinn obviously has head coaching experience. He's familiar with the Saints from coaching the Falcons. So it shouldn't be too much of an issue. You figure that this team can pretty well coach itself on the offensive side of the ball, especially getting some of their weapons back. The Saints are just a team in disarray. They have no formidable weapons to lean on. Dallas should win this one by double figures, just given the fact that the Saints defense can get worn out, just like they got worn out by Buffalo last week because they couldn't get off the field. Then, like I said, I like the Suns minus 12 over the Pistons. Detroit can't score. They can't play well on the road. And you can't really argue with a team that's won 17 in a row. And the others pairing, and like we always tell you, you can mix and match these however you want so it works for you. I like the Avalanche on the road over the Canadians. Colorado, they're not as bad as they looked last night. they've ran into a very hot team in the Maple Leafs that have been beating people left and right lately. Montreal is not that team. And I like the Panthers at home over the Sabres, -1.5. Buffalo has struggled to keep the puck out of their own net. We saw them give up 7 to the Kraken the other night. Florida is very good at home offensively. Washington saw that in the third period. Mm-hmm. You have to think that Florida wins that one by multiple goals.
Absolutely. So we've gone 2 for the money. Let's go 4 for the show.
Right, and these are games we've talked about earlier as well. I like the Capitals with the puck line over the Blackhawks. Chicago has been brutal on the road. They don't score any there either. I like Tampa Bay at home over St. Louis. They shouldn't have blown that game the other night. These things happen. I understand. I don't see them doing it twice in a row. We talked about San Antonio going on the road to face a Portland team that's 10-1 at home. The Trailblazers should win even without Damian Lillard. I expect at least 25 points from C.J. McCollum, and I expect Nurkic to be a force inside. Jacob Poeltl, while he's played well for the Spurs, he's not as experienced as Nurkic in the low block. Also, we talked about at the very top, I like Oakland over UIC. I just have no faith in a Flames team that has 1 win over a Division I team, and it took overtime. Oakland, a very good team. Like I said, they hung tough against West Virginia in Morgantown. They beat Oklahoma State in Stillwater. Their only blowout loss was a loss to Alabama in Tuscaloosa, and that's no crime losing to a Nate Oates team that has a ton of talent.
You know, it's really good to get one of those Horizon League games in there just to show people that there's money to be made on these mid-major conferences and these teams, because they do show up when when the tournament comes. And
you can never count out teams from conferences like the MAC or the Horizon or even the Ohio Valley. Belmont has been a very good team. Mm-hmm. A lot of these teams, even the SoCon, you've had Wofford upset some teams. But a lot of people don't hear about them because they don't have the big TV contracts where they're on every night of the week.
Right.
There is no SoCon network, or you're not going to tune in and where they're going to watch Patriot play or watch Lehigh play Army on the Patriot League network.
Patriot League. Actually, you could stream that. They stream their own. If you have OTT, over the top TV or Roku or stream on Fire TV or Apple, they actually have a Patriot League app, and you can watch their games. They produce their own games, so.
Well, at least that's a plus.
Right. Liam, so if you really want to see them, you can find them, but it's not.
Liam, I do like Cleveland State. Northern Kentucky has been up and down in the early going this season. The Vikings, they had their issues, but they've kind of turned it around, and they're at home in that one. Look for them to cover a 2-point advantage at the half, just because I've seen Northern Kentucky, and they're not the team. The Norse is not the team they've been in recent years. They'll get it together probably around mid-season, but in the first game of conference play, they're going to have their issues, especially on the road. As far as Gallup scoring a touchdown, it's hard to say. I mean, he's going to go back down to the third or fourth best option in the passing game behind Cooper, Lamb, and probably Dalton Schultz, who's had a great season at tight end for them, which is surprising. But then again, Dallas, they get production out of tight ends. Doesn't matter who it is. Jason Witten.
Right.
Jeff Swaim was productive for a while before in previous seasons. I don't know if I trust Gallup scoring a touchdown tonight. I mean, he had some big plays in that game against the Raiders, but they didn't come until the fourth quarter when they were behind.
Mm-hmm.
But now with Lamb and Cooper supposed to be back, I don't know if he's going to get enough volume.
Yeah. You have to wonder whether he's going to get the targets. All right. Are you ready for the big one? And you can give I'll let you put up the disclaimer this time, Mr. King. Here we go.
Right. I always call this the overloaded gargantuan mess that you can, slice and dice however you want. If you want to pick 2 or 3 out of here, you can. If you want to pick all 10, more power to you. We've had a few times where 8 of these have come out on the plus side, which would be beneficial for you. I usually would probably recommend a smaller number, but this just covers a giant mass of things that we may not have gotten to,
This
or
is our
may not have
Chinese
made,
menu.
right, that may not have made the top picks, but they're still very viable options. I like San Jose on the ice on the road over the Islanders. Barry Trotz's gang, at least they're going to get to play tonight after having their last couple games postponed. But they're 0-4-0 at the UBS Arena, and they're still minus Brock Nelson. They've got a few other guys that are banged up. They are getting some guys out of the COVID protocols, which is a plus for them. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of faith in a team that can't win in their own building. I don't know if you have anything to mention about the Islanders, Jim.
Not much. I mean, again, Barry Trotz is a friend. He's somebody who I liked a lot. He's a great defensive coach. His teams don't score a lot of goals. They're tough. They drive you nuts because they force you to play inside the dots and not outside. I mean, outside the dots, not inside. So they clog up that middle and they just annoy the hell out of you. But they're just not playing well. And the new arena, which they thought was going to be a panacea for them, has been anything but that. So tough night for Barry and the boys.
Yeah, it's gonna be rough, especially until they can get back to full strength. And I mean, there are going to be some guys that are out until late into December at best. Ryan Pulak among them on the blue line, which is a big loss for them. Plus, Zdeno Chara is still out.
Right.
I also like the Hurricanes minus the puck line over the Senators. Ottawa, like we said, got thumped 6-2 by Vancouver. Now they're going on a road to face a team that's near the top of the Metropolitan Division. The Senators at the bottom of the Atlantic. They probably wish they were at the bottom of the Atlantic. But what can you do there? I like the Sabres and Panthers to go over 6. Like we said, Florida averaging better than 4 goals per game on home ice this season. The Sabres are 30th in the league in goals against. We just saw Washington and Florida combine for 9 goals the other night. Buffalo's more porous than Washington defensively, so that one should go over. I like Dallas and New Orleans to go over the number, which is surprising considering the Saints don't score a ton of points. But this is a Dallas offense that's third in the league in scoring, and their defense is suspect. So the Saints could get a couple scores in garbage time to help push it over the number. Like we said earlier, UC San Diego -7 over Eastern Michigan on the college hardwood. Wyoming -19.5 over Denver. We talked about that ad nauseum. I've got 3 words for you that'll remind you. Ottawa University of Arizona. That's enough about that. I like Montana to get their first road win on the season as they go on the road to face Sacramento State in a Big Sky clash. On the NBA hardwood, I like the Bulls -2 over the Knicks. Take note, Kobe White is in the COVID protocols and did not travel with the Bulls for this one. But they expect to have Zach LaVine play tonight. R.J. Barrett is questionable. He only played 9 minutes the other night against the Nets with an illness. I like Memphis -9.5 over Oklahoma City. The Thunder coming out, playing the second game of a back-to-back after losing last night to the Rockets. And a game that surprisingly went over the total. I was surprised that either team realized that you could score more than 2 digits on a scoreboard. And the Bucks over the Raptors, giving 4 points just because Toronto's 2-8 at home. You can't have a ton of faith in them.
Well, I got to tell you, Chris, after the last week or so that you and I have been together on this show, I'm now am looking for merch from the University of Wyoming. They're my new favorite team. They seem to be somebody keeps popping up here on our radar screen. So
and a plus about the University of Wyoming, of course, that's where Bills quarterback Josh Allen played before getting drafted in the 2018 draft.
Yeah, and also the alma mater of Kurt Gowdy. So
there you go. Hall of Fame announcer.
Hall of Fame announcer, both in the NFL Hall of Fame and the Major League Baseball Ford Frick winner. So,
and one last thing, Liam. Sure, CeeDee Lamb, Schultz, and Cooper could open up stuff for Gallup, but you have to be concerned how many balls there are to go around. Because you also have to think they're going to feed Elliott and Tony Pollard out of the backfield. So you're looking at 5 potential guys other than Gallup that could get the ball. And you have to be concerned, is he going to get more than 3 or 4 targets in this game? I know Cedric Wilson is out, but that's not really a big factor here because you've got your 1 and 1A receivers back in the mix. Gallup at best is is the third receiver on that team, and he could fall anywhere between 3 and 6 as far as number of targets. So that's what concerns me.
To your point too, if you look at Mike McCarthy's history as a coach, he uses his tight ends as possession receivers.
Right.
Guys who are going to move the chains. If I need 5 yards to get a first down, that's where I'm going. He doesn't usually look, to them in the end zone. That's usually, they're the second, third, maybe fourth read on that situation. They're most of the time he uses some blocking. You're right about the fact that Dallas has had some fantastic tight ends who do good work, but you got to figure that now that they're getting back their wide receivers, they're going to want to work them into that system as best they can, just to get them some touches to get them to feel the ball again.
Yeah, and like I said, my concern with Gallup isn't that he's capable of scoring. Sure, he's capable of hauling in a deep pass and everything else. But the problem is, I'm concerned about the volume that he's going to get with those guys back in the mix. If he goes off and has a big game, I'll be the first to admit that I was wrong and that he panned out. I just don't see the volume there for him. I don't see him getting more than 3 or 4 targets because there's too many mouths to feed in that offense.
That, my friend, is true. There seems to be a lot going on, and Dak's going to have his hands full too because he's got plenty of he's got his running mates back, so that's good for him, and it could very well be bad for the Saints. So anyway, all right, guys. Any final thoughts, Chris, before we sign off for the gang here? And I want to thank everybody for joining us. By the way, remember, please smack that like button and hit the subscribe. We greatly appreciate it. You'll get all the information that's going on right here from Whiners and Whiners Sports Betting Network. So by all means, do that. We like the comments. You guys have been really good, asking Chris some very interesting questions. Please come back and tell your friends and enjoy that. So any final thoughts, Chris, before we sign off here?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing that you have to watch out for, like you said at the beginning, is watch out for these smaller conference teams because a lot of times everybody always wants to talk about the ACC and the Big East and the Pac-12 and the SEC and the Big Ten, and nobody ever thinks about the leagues like the Horizon and the Big West, or you only talk about the West Coast Conference if you want to talk about Gonzaga.
Mm-hmm.
There's a ton of teams out there that are good teams that nobody ever hears about that you can jump in on and make yourself a bunch of money while you're watching all your friends say, "Oh man, I picked Duke and they lost by 35 to NC State A&I Tech Community College."
Right.
And then they're mad because they picked some big name team that was upended because they were either favored by 8 zillion points and only won by 7 zillion, or you have something like what happened the other night where they lost to Ohio State where they forgot to play basketball in the second half.
Right. They went there to get their picture taken and forgot.
Right. So, I mean, you can learn a lot from these smaller conferences, even if you don't necessarily know a ton about them. You can do some research. You can watch us. You can watch Steen and Reichel. They'll give you some good information too.
Right.
And make sure you tune into them at 3:00 because they'll be here about 35
in about a half hour. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of good information you can find out there. And we're glad that you stopped by to see us.
Right. And Chris is here to not only, by the way, Chris is giving you fantastic information as he always does on the show, but be sure to check us out at winnersandwhiners.com. All the information is in the show box below. And you're going to see a lot of Chris's stuff that's posted up there and a lot of other fantastic writers, all at Whiners and Whiners. Thanks, guys, for being with us today, and we greatly appreciate it. It's always fun to have you. We will be back tomorrow. That's not a threat. That's a promise. And we'll have some fun stuff for you to look at. We got a couple of championship games in college football tomorrow to take a look at.
Yep, it's championship weekend.
It's championship weekend. It starts tomorrow. And we're going to give you the first look at who's going to win and why, and some definite parlays to go with it. So For Chris King, I'm Jim Williams. As he said, stay tuned for about a half an hour. Back to the Window with Scott and Scott will be kicking off at 3 o'clock right here on the Whiners and Whiners Sports Betting Network. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Greatly appreciated. See you next time.